Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you're feeling well. Thank you so much, Agatha, and thank you so much, Zayed, for the conversation we had started today. As you heard, we've learned that democracy is something that we constantly practice. It's something that sustain a political system that makes sure that every person has a voice. But at the same time, democracy principles are eroding. So let me take you all in a journey. It's time to move from, as Rob would say, what is to what if, so we can start imagining different ways of practicing democracy. So I will invite you to drop your values with me and then dive into a creative flow as a river does. And then at the end, we'll simply end with a confluence with different points of view with our panelists. So to start off, I will ask you all to take your phones out so we can start thinking about the values that we want to bring for a democracy of the future for us, for the next democracy we want. So please scan the code that we're going to show up in the screens soon, and I will ask you, what is the value that you want to bring for democracy? Please think of it as a North Star. I would love for you to potentially bring joy, love, maybe collective decision-making, whatever that. Trust is a good one. Joy, care, health. Equality. It's a big one for democracy. I love that love keeps at the center, no? Isn't it beautiful for us to create a potential democracy that is guided by love? And equity, of course. Thank you so much for contributing the value that you think should be the North Star of democracy. And throughout this journey, you'll see that maybe there will be finding some roadblocks, some difficulties navigating, because we're talking about creativity, we're talking about narrative, stories. Nothing is straightforward, but that's where we find the wonder of new possibilities. So don't worry, I will be your guide. If you get lost, that's great. It means that you're diving into the creative process. So when you're gonna, the next steps of this conversation, please keep in mind the values that you put in there. But before we dive further into it, that we're going to ask you all to write stories, I will invite a poet, a storyteller to the stage that it's going to inspire us all to get our creative juices flowing. So please, welcome to the stage, Louis Grégo. He grew up in Paris. He moved to London in 2017. He's been studying now French philosophy in the King's College in the Masters. So please, yes, I will let him take the stage and inspire us with a special story.
Amazing. Today I'm going to speak to you about an alternative. We are in the zone à défendre, the zone to be defended of Notre-Dame-des-Landes, at the very top of the lighthouse, which was built at the exact spot the control tower for the Nantes airport was going to be built. And I am talking with Jay, paintbrush in hand. We share a childhood in the United Kingdom and a place for a week. The lighthouse is about 30 meters high, and I do not particularly enjoy being taller than a tree. Jay passes me the joint, I draw, exhale, and imagine myself a decade later. I wonder what a successful social struggle looks like, what it truly means to have survived a way of inhabiting the world which did not suit me. Jay supposes it begins with oneself. The world does not change, according to him, regardless of the quantity of poetry one writes and subsequently recites on the top of a lighthouse. But one can inhabit the world as a poet and change lives that way, one by one, before we all drop dead. We are dying to do. Indeed, the Greek root for the word poetry means to make. And think again of all the ways we've failed to change my life, and the world for the better. Through academia, squats, agriculture, writing poetry, nothing quite works out, or at least doesn't leave us, or leave me, with a feeling of incompleteness. I take another drag and I say to myself, okay, let's think further. What about creating an anarchist community in Guadeloupe, where my ancestors are from? We need to swallow something from the top of this lighthouse. Not necessarily something physical, but an answer to what we came looking for next to Jay. Jay tells the story of Rojava, the independent anarchist nation-state at the border of Syria and Turkey. A fine outcome. Many deaths, women with Kalashnikovs. Jay sings at the top of the lighthouse. In the end, you are weary of this urban world. Shepherdess, oh mother culture, the flock that we are. Beasts of burden, we cry. You have had enough. You have had enough of living in French, American, and English modernity. Here, even the banknotes are old, our guides invisible. Resistance alone has remained new. Resistance has remained simple, like the forest of Notre-Dame-des-Landes. Alone in the world, mother culture, you are old, but less old than humanity. Your voice loops endlessly, your chains are rusted, and you, whom the windows observe, shame holds you back. From crying for help and taking the leap, you read the zines, the flyers, the posters that sing aloud the cry of man. Here is poetry. This morning, and for prose, there are the pamphlets, distributed freely, full of beautiful, real, illegal adventures, portraits of the great activists and 1,000 diverse hopes. I saw this morning a lovely Zad, whose name I have forgotten. New and clean in the sun, it was the clarion call, the workers, the farmers, the resistance. From Monday morning to Saturday evening, 4 times a day they pass through. In the morning, 3 times the lighthouse beam moans. It moans a forbidden song that barks there at noon. The walls tagged, the words shouting against the ramparts. The joyful ones like parrots screech. I love the grace of this free Zad in Notre-Dame-des-Landes, between Nantes and the beautiful ocean. And to finish, Jay tells us of communal luxury. 2 words. Finally, through speech, the pen, the pencil, through the popular reproduction of masterpieces, through the intelligent and moralizing images that can be spread in abundance and posted in the town halls of the humblest communes of France, the committee will contribute to our regeneration, to the inauguration of communal luxury, and to the splendors of the future, and to the universal republic. Upon arriving in the ZAD, we may ask, how do we anchor art once again in our struggles, in our territories, and in our lives? How can art become a means and not an end? A useful process that nourishes a radical social and ecological transformation, rather than a detached luxury, a pastime for the wealthy. So how? To care for the lighthouse of the ZAD. It's a fine example of communal luxury, a notion proposed by the Federation of Artists during the Paris Commune of 1871. 2 words, a weapon of imagination against state propaganda, for autonomous territories, a criterion of wealth defying capitalist value and the growth economy, betting on the aesthetic dimension of everyday life. Everyone can have their share of the best. The ZAD, a fine example of communal luxury. A lighthouse is better than a control tower. A middle finger to the government. During a moving debate, the organizer of the week asked participants to position themselves in the room in response to the following question. Are you optimistic about the future? Everyone, with the exception of Charles, a farmer in his 60s, and Romain, my best friend, a young and crusty punk, places themselves on the no side. Charles and Romain explain why they chose to sit on the yes side. If I have no hope, what is the point of waking up every morning and trying to resist, to do things differently? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you so much for inspiring us with this poem. And I love what you brought about communal luxury. How can we create luxury that is accessible for everybody? So now I will turn to all of you, but don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to write whole stories. But let's start writing maybe 2-sentence stories. I will also put a little bit of code on the screen so you can scan again and start writing a 2-story that makes you feel hopeful about collective decision making. Do you need examples? Don't worry, we have some. For example, I thought I was alone, but I changed my mind when I had tea with my neighbor. Do you have an example to share with us?
An example. When I think of freedom, I want it to mean that we can be autonomous. That is, to give our political collective our own laws. I don't want to be a superhuman, a cyborg, to live in a VR in order to be freed from the material world. I want to care for my people.
So, scan the code that will show up in the next few seconds and start writing your story so we can all collectively start rewriting the narratives that make sense for us for democracy. Oh, I think we got the wrong QR code, probably the one before, because now you're not supposed to vote just yet. But you can also vote if you're already very excited. Just little technical questions. We're going to get there. And in the meantime, I can also read some additional examples to get your creative juices flowing. So I was screaming to the void, thinking that my voice carried no weight, until I was lifted up when I was echoed in your voice.
I woke up yesterday morning, listened to the radio, and heard Ferris Barkat, the creator of Banlieue Climat, tell me the story of his activism. We can do this.
So now that we have the right code on the screen, so feel free to start writing your stories. And hopefully we'll collect enough so we can eventually write new narratives that will make sense for us of democracies that we want for the future. Más amor, por favor. Oh, I'm loving them. Cultural values are my lighthouse. Isn't that beautiful?
I like this one. Thank you, guys. The luxuries of life are already here. We live on a planet of life and wonder. We just need to kill some billionaires and get it back.
Ooh.
We do not advocate for murder, guys, but yes.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing your creativity. This is so beautiful. Más amor, por favor. We have in different languages too.
Yeah, it's great.
This is very exciting. I'll give you guys 2 more minutes so you can fill in your stories and you can paint new narratives for what collective decision-making actually means for you. Oh, and you can actually like the stories that you resonate with, which is very nice.
If an ecosystem dies, something in all of us dies. That's very true.
Yes. There's so many people who want to do good, and I got cut. Wow. I think we definitely need to organize a way for people to keep putting their stories
Absolutely.
and then visiting other stories later on, because this is very beautiful, and I think it makes me very hopeful.
It's great.
So just giving the last 60 seconds before we will jump to the next section of our panel. Right of everybody to participate in political process, not just elections. Yes. Democracy is much more than just elections, as I had mentioned before.
I like how much like ecology-focused things we are seeing.
Yes.
It's very important. It's
At the
perfect
end.
what I'm going to speak about.
Yes. It is all connected at the end now.
It is.
Yes. So as we close, I want to thank everybody for contributing, and hopefully I will continue to hear more of those stories in the coming days, weeks, months. We'll keep in touch. But now that we're moving on to the next section, I would like to invite two panelists that will help us confluence some ideas about how narratives influence our lives, our societies, and our behaviors. So, now that Lou helped, now that you first initially had the drops and told us the value that you want democracy to have and guide us, and then Lou influenced us with a flow of imagination, and you all contributed to a river of imagination and stories. I'm gonna call to the stage very soon Rob Hopkins, the co-founder of the Transition Movement and author of public speaker and time traveler. He's the author of several books, most recently, How to Fall in Love with the Future. He's currently developing a touring live show called Field Recording of the Future, which blends light projection, storytelling, and ambient music created around the world, recording made in places that tell the story about the future. So his monthly newsletter, which calls the Time Travel Gazette, it's something that I highly recommend you all follow. And then the next person I will call onto the stage is Steph Benarek. It's a climate psychologist, system thinker, and founder and director of the Center of Climate Psychology. She has worked as a consultant for local and national government, large NGOs, and corporate. Steph added a book that is highly appreciated called Climate Psychology and Change, which was called A Work of Wisdom and Radical Ideas by Satish Kumar, and has been endorsed by Bill McKibben and Frichard Capra and other leading system thinkers. So please join us on the stage for a panel conversation on how we can confluence our minds and think about how